Recording is in progress, and welcome to Zoom, everybody. Thank you all very much. Welcome to Equitrack. Equitrack, www.equitrack, equitrack.com.au. And together on the call, we have Rachael McDonald, who brought along the platform. And that last meeting we had probably 2.5 weeks, 2.5 weeks ago? It was like 6 months.
It feels like a lot longer, but it wasn't. I think it was about 10 days ago, Andrew.
I think it's 2.5 weeks because we had 2 weeks. Anyway, something like that. Remember, we had that meeting where we passed 3 resolutions, and
the original
that was the original Zoom, and that's where Rachael popped up and said that she's got a platform. So we did speak the next day. We did actually, I think we spoke for 2 hours, I think, Rachael, from memory. Covered a lot of ground, and I then also spoke to Renee. I spoke to Di, speak to everybody. I asked Nicole, Nick, up in the top corner there, as our website diva. She's a good friend of mine, fantastic lady. She's helped us put together the website. So if you do look at the website, it is live. I will go to a share screen quickly. If I can find too many windows open. Hang on a second. I will go to the window. You have to activate it one at a time. Zoom. Share screen. And we have Dan in the call. He's going to take us through. So here we have the Brumby Count webpage. And that's where we asked you to register your interest. That was so that we can keep in touch with you and give you messages as the website builds and with this training program that we've been building. So now there's more of the website available. Nicole's turned it on. This has all been built in the background. So we have the Snowy Mountains Heritage Brumbies, a bit of a quick blurb. There's a little demo in here. It's a quick demo on how to start training an AI ML system. I'll play that in a minute, and then anybody can watch it later. When we were mucking around with the drones at Rachael's, these are Rachael's horses. We had this little function where you can do a 360-degree fly around. So this is 30 meters above the horses, and this was in the afternoon. When we were 30 meters above the horses in the morning, they ran away. They didn't like the sound. And later in the afternoon, they got a bit used to us buzzing them. And so they were a lot more undisturbed. You'll see the report on the side, 90 megabytes. It's a big report. So this has been put together by Sarah. It is incredibly detailed. Feel free to share that around, and make sure you feel free to share it to the politicians and what have you. So you can read it and you can download it. It is quite detailed and helps bring the whole thing together. So there's more to the website. The idea of registering is so that we can't just have any old person jump in and offer to help us training an AI platform. We really need to have people who we can trust, because it's such an important part of the platform. So what I'll quickly do is wind back a bit. And if there are any other viewers in here or new viewers, the issue at hand is Kosciuszko National Park, which is in New South Wales, in the southern part. It's our Alpine National Park. It's one of the older ones in the world, and we have horses in it. Horses are not native to Australia. Take screen share off. And there is a lot of contention about whether or not the horse is beneficial to the park or whether the horse should remain. There is quite strong opinion that anything that's not native should be removed. And that's where the agenda to remove horses comes from. The Ngarigo people are an Australian Aboriginal grouping of families. So it's a Ngarigo tribe or a tribal area, which consists of a lot of family groups or clans. They are a bit mixed. Some of the Ngarigo, the more, I say, more genuine ones, are happy with the horse. And when the horse came here about 200 years ago, they were quick to embrace the horse and the benefits that the horse brought them. And they were quite well renowned as very, very skilled horsemen, because they knew the country, they knew the land.
There we
and
go.
Then they jumped on the horse. It worked for them.
Awesome.
Just be careful with muting. If you're unmuted and you're having a yarn, it'll come through the broadcast. So the history is, again, for viewers overseas and what have you, Australia was settled 250 odd years ago. Around 200 years ago from today, horses first appeared in the Monero, the Kosciuszko area. And within this part of New South Wales, we have a lot of treeless, open plain areas, big wide grasslands. And so when the first settlers and the escaped convicts and the white fella came down, they didn't have to cut the trees down and plant paddocks. They could just graze open areas. They bought horses. There were no fences. Horses were either let go, escaped. They let them live in the bush, and they then, over time, periodically harvested horses by rounding them up, catching them. In the Boer War, they were specifically rounded up. They were then brought down to the coast to a place near Tathra. They were held in a few holding areas before they were loaded on the ships and sent over to South Africa. They were known as a very sturdy, very stocky, very mixed breed horse. And that was then repeated in World War One and other campaigns. Brumbies were used in the Beersheba, the last charge of Beersheba, in relation to Gallipoli. From memory, it's 1917. And so that's what we consider a colonial history. And one argument for the horse being removed is that we suffer an anti-colonial agenda with our left side of politics, which is a worldwide problem, not just Australia. And a lot of people have spent a lot of time trying to work out, why are we treating horses the way we do? And the simple answer is there are a lot of reasons, and a lot of them we are not told and we are not privy to. So we jump forward to where we are today. It's Saturday, the 3rd of February. In 2 days, on the Monday at 10 a.m. on the 5th of February, day 2 of the New South Wales parliamentary inquiry into horses and horse management will resume. It's chaired by Emma Hurst, who was the leader of the Animal Justice Party in New South Wales, and she's an MLC. She's a politician in our upper house. And they call witnesses, and they allow the witness to make an opening statement, and then the witnesses are, in effect, cross-examined or examined upon their statement and upon their opinion. And it's a committee of inquiry. As the committee works through written submissions, video submissions, they might call for papers from Parliament, parliamentary departments, ministers' department. Then the committee will have multiple meetings itself. It'll digest the information and arrive at a set of recommendations and outcomes which the government is encouraged to adopt. We have a nominal left government in New South Wales. It's a bit of a knife edge. And of course, the left want all the horses removed. So will the current government observe the outcomes of the inquiry? That's the million-dollar question. The issue of counting horses, I think, is more than it needs to be. There's a lot of effort gone into saying that the counting of the horse is the horse's last chance, the Brumbies' last chance. And I think it's unfortunate that message got ahead of us that message was used to help raise money in the GoFundMe, the first GoFundMe, and an activity that was headed up by Rocky Harvey in partnership with Claire Galea. And Claire has been involved in the background through the first inquiry and through submissions which gave rise to the inquiry, and in criticism of the government's agenda to reopen aerial culling. And so I want to assure all of you that this notion that the count that Rocky was putting together and that we all raised money for, that is not the last chance for the Brumby. There are still political solutions, political actions that are underway. And on Monday, I will also be delivering some other information through the parliamentarians on the committee that might give rise to the minister directing a halt to the culling agenda. And that gives us a bit of breathing space to continue with the count. Now, does everybody kind of follow where we're up to? Anyone can nod, but that's sort of the state of play where we're at. So I'll rewind a little bit. So Rocky with Claire Galea put together an idea to count the horses using aerial imagery and an AI counting strategy. That's not a new idea. That has been done for lots of different applications. And it was something that Claire Galea mentioned in the first inquiry, and Rocky appeared as of nowhere offering to raise funds. And then that was put together, and we did pretty heavily embrace that, and we all pitched in and we all put money in. I was not allowed to put money in, and that's a conversation for a separate day. But I saw some red flags with the narrative, the story, and I was privy to a lot of information which motivated me to try to understand better what was happening. Did Rocky and Airborne Logic have the capacity to do a count? And I think everybody realizes that we've had discussions and I was not comfortable with that. So I started discussing what would be needed to put in place a backup plan. So not necessarily an alternate count, but a backup plan. How else can we achieve this? And that then sort of became the thing that overtook Rocky, as it were. And that's why we're here today. We as a community started to lose faith in the competence of the Rocky count. And we had a meeting about 2.5 weeks ago at Zoom. And we passed 3 resolutions, which was to halt any spending of funds until there was general agreement as to the areas to be surveyed. Because we realized that Rocky's area was not what we all expected and what we were all paying for. We asked for an urgent meeting with Rocky, where we recommended people like Renee and others come in to assist with the task. And it was at that time not public, but I knew Claire had quit. So we were politely trying to recommend that Rocky accept help, and that did not happen. So Rachael came up in that meeting and offered her platform.
Yeah.
So I contacted Rachael. She gave me a number. Rachael and I met up this week. We've had a lot of conversations. In the background, we had some Zoom meetings. I started putting together a project team. I wrote a project brief. I reached out to Nicole to help us with a website. I asked Renee and Di if they would be project stakeholders. And admittedly, they had no idea what I was talking about. And there was an impression that we were creating a business. We were not creating a business. We were creating a project team using business principles. And so I don't want anyone to be under any illusion that we've created a business. We have not. We have registered a website. It is not a business. And to Marilyn Nusky and Jeanette Marie, who have shared around the internet as far as they can the ASIC registration of Equitrack Proprietary Limited, I hope you all noticed that it was deregistered in 1994. I was a wet behind the ears second year apprentice at Liddell Power Station. I had nothing to do with horses. So there is no business, but I'll be blunt, there is a business opportunity, but it is so big and so wide that we can't even discuss it this afternoon. There are too many opportunities. So Equitrack is a website. It is a project name. We undertook amongst ourselves to, as quickly as possible, build a platform that could use an AI, an enhanced machine learning system, to count from imagery, quality imagery, wherever we could get it. We looked at satellites. We looked at high level and low level flying with fixed wing and drones, along with any landscape photography. Because you can count landscape photography too. So I'll hand over quickly to Rachael, and Rachael will give you a quick background about her platform and what her team have done, which brings into point the relevance of why we now say we have a platform. We do not just count horses. We count anything that you can see. So Rachael, you can
anything that we can see. So my team have already put together, which is what we are using as the basis for our Brumby counting so far, an AI platform that counts rabbits. Now we look at thermal imaging, we look at infrared, and we look at daylight imagery. Now a lot of it's got to do with drones, but that does not mean that we need to stop there. We can look at satellite and we can look at fixed wing aircraft. Similar to what Airborne Logic would be doing in the Rocky Count. There are lots of organisations across New South Wales that we can, if we wanted to, contract to do the fixed wing flight if we needed to do that. Now, my software and my team have already counted rabbits for the ACT government. They count kangaroos. Now, kangaroos are very political in the ACT. Not sure whether you follow that space, but they're almost as political as brumbies in New South Wales and Victoria in regards to culling them, removing them, desexing them, shooting pellets into them. There's a lot of stuff that goes on with kangaroos, okay? So we already count kangaroos and we count rabbits, but we are also in Queensland counting turtle traps, and we are counting crown of thorns starfish with the software that we are putting forward and have started the training of with the imagery that we have taken over the last 2 weeks, 10 days, Andrew, is what we've been working on. It's really 10 days. So the platform that we are putting forward is tested to rabbits. We're talking about brumbies here. They're a very different pattern shape. The shadows are different. The way that they move through the landscape is different, but it's not as erratic as a rabbit. And we already count rabbits. So why can't we count brumbies? I say we can. We are doing it.
That's brilliant, Rachael. Fantastic.
Thanks.
And yes, and I totally follow the kangaroos and have tried to help there as well. So it's very much polarizing fight against government and other interested money makers they make money out of kangaroos. So of course they're going to make sure that they say they're pests by telling us the numbers are huge.
Exactly. So the count for kangaroos across the ACT is much higher than they really are. Farmers get involved. Farmers can get permits. The political parties get involved because the farmers want them gone because they consider them to be pests, but they are our native animal. Now, in my stance, people might say this is wrong, but our brumbies, after 200 years, are considered in our hearts and minds something part of our heritage. Not native, but they're still part of our heritage. We need to count them properly, and the machine learning that we've put in place to count rabbits, kangaroos, starfish, turtles, we are using right now to count the brumbies with the imagery that we've taken over the last 10 days and have been supplied over the last 10 days. There's a lot more that needs to happen here, a lot more, because we need to teach it what a brumby looks like from all sorts of angles. We need to teach it what a brumby looks like from 1,000 meters. We need to teach it what a brumby looks like from 1,500 meters with an angle or a gimbal or a swathe of different proportions. So the metadata is very important with what we are providing to the application. So it's not a machine. There's a lot of machines that back it up. This is sitting on AWS, so Amazon. So the compute power that we have at our hands is immense. We're talking about teaching a program to understand when it is right and when it is wrong, when it's looking at an image. Is it a rock or is it a horse? Now, the way that we do that is by taking many, many images and feeding that into the machine. So that's where I'll call it crowdsourcing of images. We're not talking about crowdsourcing for funding or crowdfunding at all. We're crowdsourcing imagery so that we can feed the machine to make it learn, so that our count, when we do get to count these brumbies in the parks, can be at a 99.5 confidence level.
So
Amazing.
if you can hear me there, I'll jump back in. So I'd ask a question, a pretty simple thing. How many people, you don't have to answer, but it's sort of standard question. How many people here or anywhere actually know what AI counting means? Do you really know what artificial intelligence means? Do you know what machine learning means? You've heard of it, but very, very few people have experienced it. And the point that we want to make is I've had some experience in the past, so I've got a reasonable understanding of it. It still starts off with the human. The computer is only as smart as what you program it to be. And whilst it might be able to iterate is like to repeat, it has to learn in increments. So you can do something, learn. Then you got to check that it's learned, or it checks. You score, it's like it's homework, and you do it again. It's like writing an essay. Teacher marks the essay, sends it back. You have to change a couple of words, or picks up a few spelling mistakes, and then you do it, resubmit. Gets marked again. So to that point, we need assistance to train our computer. Because when we spoke to the programmers or the techs, the developers, and said, can you count horses? They said, yeah, of course we can. You can count anything we can see. But we have to build an image library. What is it you want us to count? I said, we need to count horses from above, which means we're looking at horses' bums. It's quite often their head's down, they're in a group. So what does a horse look like from above? So I'll take you very quickly. I'm just trying to get jump windows and then share it. I'll just share my window. It only allows me to share one window at a time. Crikey, no. Sorry. I'll tell you what, we're cheap. We'll go to the website. And you're starting to see what horses look like from above. Notice the shadows and how the shadow changes with your perspective. The computer or the camera on the drone or the airplane or whatever you're using, it can see the horses and the horse's shadows, and it can get confused. So you have to train it what a horse is, and then you'll need to train it what a horse isn't. And you need to train it how to see from different heights through other vegetation, and when they're standing close to each other, and it might look like a six-legged horse because there's one's got its head down, one's got its head up. So that's training. So what I'll do is we will play this little video. It's 7 minutes. If you can bear with it, it gives you a first-person sort of view. It's me recording the very first step of starting the program to learn what a horse is. And I did this with the programmer yesterday. We were in a motel. There was a wedding. There was a woman getting married. And so there was a few people milling around, and just ignore the background noise. We just did the best we could play. So I'll play this. Hopefully the sound works. Is there any sound your end? I've got my computer muted.
No sound at the moment.
No sound.
Hang on.
No sound from me.
No
Hang
sound
on.
for me.
I'll just,
No sound.
because I mute the computer. See if it tries. We didn't road test this, so we're not sure if it works.
Hey, can they hear you?
That was very quickly what AI relating to counting and using
Can you hear it
images
now?
actually is. So take it away, Andrew.
Yes.
What we're looking at here is a thermal
Mute yourself, Andrew.
Hang on, I can't actually mute myself because then
Oh
you
no, then you won't hear it. Yeah,
video.
gotcha.
I'm going to walk away from the laptop and it should work.
Got a little rough project demonstration starting with rabbits. I'm here with Andrew from JJR, and he's going to show us very quickly what AI relating to counting and using images actually is. So take it away, Andrew.
Yeah, no drama. So what we're looking at here is a thermal image of a paddock that's got some rabbits in it. And what we've done is we've trained a model to detect rabbits in an image. And so just press play here. You'll see we hit the predict button there, and that's the computer has just gone in there and predicted where the rabbits are. And you can see the blue boxes around there. Where we've missed one, we go in and we just add that.
So hang on, so that's you drawing.
Yeah, yes,
Manually.
I'll do another one here in a moment. So this is the way that you train a model is you have a crack, you try it. If it needs adjusting, you add in another one. So there I've just added in 2 more rabbits. So that takes the count there to 12 rabbits.
And that's incredibly labor intensive. That's
It is just to start with, yes, but then the more labeling you do, the better the algorithm gets detecting things, and then the less labeling you have to do manually. So it's yeah, beginning is quite labor intensive, but then it becomes less intensive. The other thing to note is there's not too many models that do thermal detection. So if this was daylight, it'd be much easier. But because we're doing it at night, because we want to see that it is a rabbit and not just a tussock.
So some of those dots that we just saw, they could be rocks here, they could be warm rocks,
warm rocks,
and
yeah.
that's a rabbit, but
Yeah.
that's a warm rock.
Yeah, and the way that we know that is that we were standing on site when the drone was taking this video. So we were about 25 meters away from the rabbits. So we were able to positively identify the rabbits in there. So yeah, so that's the end of that one. And then if we're going to do this with our brumbies,
Move the camera out of the way.
there we go.
Mate, that's not a brumby.
No, that's a goat. So in this instance, how about we just add that one in there.
So you're now adding a new identification.
Yeah.
project.
Yep. So if we see a goat.
Oh, so
something
that's
else,
project labels. We've now got a
Yeah.
choice of Brumby, a car or goat.
yeah, that's right. So yeah, see our goat there, and if we want to detect him or her, we just put a little bounding box around it, and in this instance,
So, sorry, a bounding boxes, you draw a box around the
Wait, yeah.
thing.
yeah, exactly right. So draw, and in this instance, in the background, the computer's actually working. You should see a whole bunch of dots appear in a moment. And
Ah.
it's found sort of the edge of the goat mostly.
It's a bit random,
Bit
but,
random, but then-
but that's the point. It's version 1. So you
Yeah.
correct it manually.
yeah, well, so
So
something-
you
yeah,
drag the box.
we drag the box out there to get a bit more.
It's not a box now. It's a,
No, it's kind of an outline of the goat.
Righto.
So, and so then that will get added into the model. And so if we're going to do that for a horse,
oh, so the computer's picked up a horse already there.
yeah, yes, it's picked up on there already. And again, it's not too bad in terms of the model.
It's
So,
it's got a little bit of the leg shadow. So,
yeah, so we'd go in and we just tidy that one up. A
oh,
little
so you'll
bit.
correct that off.
Yeah, so just get rid of that a little bit there, just to tidy it up. So that way, and there's a little bit sort of up here. I'm quite sure whether that's his tail or her tail. Probably get rid of that too. And so that just gives.
What
some
about
depth
these
of-
couple of dots here? That's shadow. So you push that back, you have to push that back.
Yeah, we just tidy it
So
up.
that's a lot of work to do that on.
It is to start with, definitely, but then once you've done, pick a number, probably 100, the machine starts to get better at it, and then you start to have to touch things up as opposed to do the whole process there.
Right.
And then the more examples we get, the better the machine learns, and then the less you've got to do, and then it'll get to a point where we just pass it an image, and it'll give us back a count of how many horses or zombies are in there, and we don't have to do anything. So
And we can kick some of these images out to the public portal and get the public to double check and
Yep. yeah, exactly right.
provide a stronger confidence to what the machine does.
Yeah, exactly right. That's
Yeah, yeah.
what we call the ground truth, to make sure that that count matches, and that's how we judge how accurate a model is.
Righto, so if we run that image again now that you've added a goat, that we run it on, because there's more than one goat in there. What happens if we
Yeah.
run that again now with one training iteration?
The training iteration will be happening in the background, so you might not, and that. Yeah, it's not picking it up. Yeah, so probably need another iteration or a longer iteration, and it'll start to. But it
Or
should be-
do we need more images of goats in the goat library, so to speak?
Well, we do, the more diverse the image library is, the better off it is, particularly if we expect to see goats. If we don't expect to see goats, then not really any value in adding it. So it might be pigs that we want to see, because we want
Right.
to see pigs up there.
But if we scale out, we can put goats, pigs, deers, anything in
Anything
there.
it, yes, so
So we're not limited.
not limited at all. There's a person in here as well too, so we might be able to
You
add a
have
flag
people?
for a person. And,
Well,
yeah,
there's 2 more
goats,
goats.
yeah, so exactly right. So we'd add them into the model and then iterate through that. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's definitely an iterative process. That's the way we approach it, is to start with the baseline, work on that.
Yep.
And then improve.
You zoom out the image.
Yep.
So when we ran this image after some training and a bigger library, would pick up person.
Yep.
Horse.
Yep.
It would not see these weird things as other than weeds, which is what they are.
Yeah.
Goat, person.
Yep. And then of course, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's
Side of-
another horse over
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
exactly right. So,
Right.
and then we could teach the model the different types of grass that's in that picture as well. So if that was something that was important to the problem, to identify weeds or with blackberries or tussocks or some invasive species.
So weed identification,
Yeah.
any invasive weeds, so all those things, these are all able to be done. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of putting it into
Incredible.
putting it into a project and
Yeah.
doing it.
I picked up that the goat weren't a horse.
area, the localized area,
I
because
picked up that the goat weren't a horse.
they don't transfer really easily. So it might, we could have picked one else and it might have come up and said, that was a cow. It might actually know it's a horse, or it might have
Right.
picked up a different pasture and stuff like that. So it is that localizing the model is what takes the time to iterate through. But the benefit of that is when you've got 1,000 images, then you just pump it at the computer and it spits back the results.
The
to you.
computer does all of that.
Yeah.
We don't have to do it one by one.
Yeah, exactly
Right,
right.
perfect. Right, I think that's a good explanation to work people into
Yeah.
what is AI. Well, now you know a little bit more about what it is.
Yeah, exactly right. Practical examples. So, yeah.
Thank you, Andrew.
Cheers.
That's a great demo.
Very good.
Righto. Oops. Uh, that's your first exposure to practical, actual AI. So what we tried to do was to create the beginning library of what horses look like from above, and that was 15 meters. And we moved them around. That was our Brumbies here at Nimittabel, along with some domestic horses. And as they walked around and we pushed them around, we put the goats in there, and we also had humans, along with some, the big yellow cable drums. It was a mixed environment so that you're testing the computer to see how stupid it is at the beginning of the project. So if it highlighted a cable drum because it was yellow in a green background, if the computer is dumb, it doesn't know. It just says, well, that's different. But it didn't pick those things up. It went straight for the most likely animal looking things. And so it's then what they call an iterative, 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 a repeat process. So we are not going to ask you to do that with the dots. That's not what we're talking about. Who remembers that lovely little step when you click onto a website and it says, prove you're not a robot, click on all the bicycles, click on all the stairs, click on all the taxis. That's machine learning. So that's actually teaching a computer how to identify things in urban landscapes. And if you look carefully, the more of them you do, the shittier the image gets, the blurrier. It says click on all the taxis. And there's something that you're not sure whether it's a taxi or not. Well, neither's the computer. And so you're trying to help the computer work it out because it can't. The theory is you can. And it measures the response of 1,000 people or 10,000 people. And if 80% of people click on the image that they think is a taxi, the computer can rely on their judgment. And then it'll say, okay, well, that was the taxi and the other thing wasn't. That's what we need to do. It's our first attempt in a week. And so this is where I want to sort of jump over to Dan. And we have built the first version to give you basic exposure to this process ahead of building it up. And remember, Renee gave you a little sneaky peek because we like putting Easter eggs in our conversation. Remember, Renee put up an image with the horse with the boxes on it? Yeah. That's because we started talking about how do we train a computer, and I made a joke about click on all the bicycles, and Renee made up that thing. So that is actually what we're going to use in the beginning stages. So I'll hand over to Dan, and Dan will take you through.
Yeah, hi guys. Hopefully you can hear me. I've been on mute. Okay. So what we've done is exactly what Andrew has said. So this is the first step in getting the crowd, the power of the crowd to talk to the machine learning and improve its accuracy from the start. So what we've done is develop a script where we can take just a photo, various photos of horses, and we will need you guys to just click the boxes as I am now, just to show that these are where the horses are, or there's a part of a horse and how many horses are in this image. So I'll take you through 10 very quickly. This is one of Andrew's photos. If someone's not on mute, as I do this, can someone do a quick count? So I want to show you guys how hard it is to actually count horses. How many horses?
10.
So this is one of Rachel's. So this is a zoomed in. I won't guess how high this drone was, but it was pretty high, and we zoomed in on a horse. What we have to do is train the machine learning to be able to detect this as well as a horse. So down to this level of fuzzy resolution. So I think I've got it all. It's clearly one. All right, here's a tricky one. How many horses?
3.
So I got that one. Are they horses or are they cows?
Horses.
Cows.
Uh-oh. And what's this?
There's one horse.
So you can see, so I'm going to shoot for 2. You can see how complex it is and how important humans are. I'm going to say they're horses in the top left.
Yeah.
Maybe sheep, something like that. Is there any else? Rachel, this is yours. Can you see anything?
No, but that's okay. But what you need to look at here is the patterns of behavior between different animals. So you've got horses being herd animals at the top. You've got cows being their own herd at the bottom. So it's hard to pick at this height and this distance or this gimbal. What's a horse and what's a cow? But this is how we train the machine.
So are you saying that this will be open for people to help train it? Is this what you're saying, Dan and
Correct.
Rachel?
So this
Yeah.
is going to go, right now there's 10 photos. I'm not sure how far I am in, but there's only 10 photos. You guys need to learn the program, and then we need to keep watching how you interact with it and developing or refining on the fly. So this is the first draft, because throwing this at a machine learning algorithm will become just messy. It's just going to take more human time than we want to at the start. So we might as well involve everyone now.
Okay, so in saying that, and being the trusting person that I'm not, if it's open to everybody, people could muck around with your program because we're trying to.
Andrew,
You
you
know
want
what I'm
to
saying?
pipe in?
We've thought of that.
Yeah.
So that's
Good,
why
good,
there's a registration, so we can filter out the
good.
dickheads.
Good.
And
Of course you would have.
I-
But we're also trusting.
I'm not going to tell you what happens. Nothing bad happens, but knock your socks off. Go for it. And there's a few surprises that we're building in, and this is version 1. We've had some very innovative ideas, which might turn up in future versions of how to deal with that. But anybody can use this, and yes, people could come in and deliberately click on everything that isn't a horse. But you're also dealing with an AI program. It's not
Yes.
stupid. So
Yes.
it's going to look at it. So in the first versions, we click on the correct answers. And so it's starting to compare the human response. Like Dan showed that great image a couple of tiles back, where was it a stump with a shadow on the edge of the dam, or is it an animal? Now, this is not taken from 1,060 meters, which is where Rocky proposes to take his imagery. So we're nowhere near that height now. And I know they might be using really good cameras and what have you. We were using a very good camera too. But can you see, even in this image, this is zooming in from where we took the original image. And that's how the computer operates. It zooms into the image to the pixel level. So it's looking at the image at every dot at the same time, and it starts to map the relationship between dots. And we can't do that because that's beyond our seeing ability. And that's why we use the computer to do it. And so the bigger the image, the bigger the computer power or the computing time. And some of these iterations, some of these learning cycles, they might take overnight. And as the image, let's say the image that we would need to acquire for the national park, it could take a week. to resolve through the system unless it had done hundreds and hundreds of training cycles. It could take a week for the computer to run through all of the image. But our approach is to break it down into smaller images and run through groups of smaller images. And to get into the mechanics a bit more is to break the image down into areas of interest and areas of low interest. So if we filter our image, if we take out the low probability areas of seeing horses and focus on the high probability areas only, we might get rid of 50% or 80% of the processing time required to do each run, each version. And that's why there still needs to be that human validation point, because after each run, you want to check the computer's homework. So we're looking to build this capability into a series of automations. The computer runs an image, it kicks out some sample images to be checked. It takes the response from that checking, feeds it back in, learns, runs the image again, and kicks it out. And in so doing, we can highlight horses, other animals, deer, goat. It can then narrow down areas of focus, and it can also tell you areas where it sees nothing, which also means that you can start to exclude those areas. It could start to map blackberries, for example. Every time we acquire an image set over an area, we can record where the blackberries and the orange hawkweeds and things like that are, GPS locate them, and then next time we do another image acquisition, you can get the computer to check those blackberries or hawkweeds. Have they got bigger? Or if there was a poison applied to them, have they got smaller? Have they started to die off? So the application of this is quite immense. As I said, it's like looking at a funnel, but looking through the skinny end of the funnel at the world. Does that make sense? So I spoke to our local member, Steve Wan, at the Nimbinaville show today, and I started telling him about these capabilities and where we think we're going to be able to take this and what we can offer. He was very doubting. He was very dismissive. And my reading of the conversation is that this is going to be a very, very difficult thing to convince the government to use, because it's a truth machine. There's a little bit of irony in that what you see is what's there. No bullshit. Might take a bit of time to count it or analyze it or document it, but what comes up in the image is a faithful photocopy of what was there at the time the image was captured. And so this is a very, very powerful tool. It's a tool for good if you are proposing to use it for good reasons. And I assure you that that is our intention. So Dan, have you got any other bits to finish off?
Yeah, I'll just keep punching through to the end just to show you guys. So I said there was 0 horses on that last one, because they're all cows. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're not expecting 100% accuracy, and knowing that something is a cow or a deer will actually help train the models as well, in as much, you know, what not to do or what not to include. And then, well, there's probably one more last one. Yeah, this one's tricky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is basically the view. There's something down there, but I haven't excluded it. Rachael could probably talk to the behavior of the horses sticking together versus whatever that is. I think there's 11 from memory. And it's told me my score's a bit low, 3 incorrect tiles, and I've missed some. my horse count was out 88%. So we can then just translate this back in, and yeah, if you're a goose and you get 10%, we're going to know, and we'll be able to just, I mean, you're welcome to keep clicking and spending your time on the website, but those results won't find their way into the, to be fed back into the rest of the system.
So this also gives us the opportunity to, you notice that it said that the name of the person who supplied the photo or the location was actually displayed. So we attribute the source of the photo where we know who gave it to us. And this is version 1. I don't think there's anything else like this out in the whole of the internet. There certainly was not very many images of horses from above, other than some drone shots that really were taking people into the environment, or it was part of telling a story and it was part of a video, but still shots of horses from varying heights was incredibly hard to find. So we've had to manufacture that, but that's what's been keeping us busy and on our toes. So what this means is that you don't have to keep giving money. You can just give some of your time, and you can check back in from time to time, and you can say, oh, I've got this really awesome photo. Can you put it into your program? And the answer is yes. So where this goes is it's project and business management. So if you use a business management strategy, you don't build the McDonald's franchise overnight across the planet. You start with one restaurant. Colonel Sanders did, the McDonald's brothers, I think, the food started that. It starts and it grows. So we've got a counting program. We're motivated. We start with horses. We are building in other animal functionality and weed functionality, but there's a lot of training required. So we're going to be able to build forks of this program. So there's a weed fork, there's a goat fork, or a pig fork, or a pig rutting. There's any number of forks. And what I mean by a fork is you sort of, it's like fork in the road. You go straight ahead, or you turn off, or you've got a choice, or a roundabout, whatever. They're options. This is what we need to build over time. And we are asking people to be able to assist, and always looking backwards at the reason for this was to count the horse. Now, this brings us back to our political point. We need the politicians to know that this ability now exists. That when they say there's 14,000, 23,000, or any number, we don't agree with that number. And we are offering to go and get that number. And it's not going to just be as simple as flying over the park and counting the horses in the image, because they're in trees, they're in shade. Deer can sometimes look like a horse. This is all so early days. Sorry, Renee, your question was, I just got questions coming up on the phone. What was the time for the machine? Oh, that's a good question for Rachael. What was the time for the machine learn to identify a starfish?
So that took a few weeks for a starfish, because you're dealing with different densities of pixels as opposed to what we're talking about with brumbies. So what we've seen just then is that the brumby has a shadow, it's very dark as opposed to the landscape. And what we need to tell the machine is that the rocks, the branches, the trees or the shrubs are not an animal or foal, because foals are smaller, of course, than a larger horse, mare, stallion, and the like. So it did take us at least 2 weeks to get the platform to start to learn about what was a starfish in amongst all of that very, very similar pixel density imagery that we were taking. It's the same with the turtle tracks. So we've done we've done some turtle track counting, and what we're saying with that, when we're looking at tracks on sand, is that we think there are 10 turtles here on this beach. And that takes a lot of information to feed into the machine. So there was a lot of imagery taken and a couple of weeks. But we're talking a couple of weeks here. We're not talking months, and we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this done.
Rachel, just have you got those images of the turtle tracks, those 3 images side by side we saw in the slide deck the other day?
I'm not at hand, no.
Not at hand, okay. So in the presentation we had the other day, I'll try and see if I can bring up an image. Zoom, share screen. So if you look at this image here, you can see the shadow of the horse. So the computer would count that as 2 horses. This one here would do its head in, because it's like, hang on, that horse has got 2 heads. And then what's this one doing? Is it sitting on its bum? You see how shadow plays havoc with just the simple, literal, pretend you're a computer looking at that image. There's a 2-headed, 2-bodied horse. What the hell's that? That makes no sense whatever. That's a horse. That's 2 horses, that's 2 horses, that's 2 horses, and there's our 2-headed fat horse. Do you see the problem? And this is from a fairly low height and from a fairly high sun. When the sun's at lower angles, early in the morning, late in the afternoon, the shadows get longer. The other thing is the computer is smart enough, because these are all locations are tagged with a latitude, longitude, and a time. If this was a photo taken in the morning, the computer will tell whether the shadow was on the wrong side. To say, if this was a horse, the sun is in the east rising, the shadow is in the east, then it's 2 horses, or it's highly likely 2 horses, not 1 horse, because the shadow is on the wrong side. These are the kind of things that program learns and is programmed to learn. It knows where the sun is, it knows where the photo was taken. It's actually very, very clever in those regards. The other thing that these programs need, and it's a criticism I'm going to throw at Rocky, because Rocky has not taken the effort to explain any of this to us. These images all need image processing. They have to be processed so that the computer fits them into its image database, and so that there isn't blurry shit on the sides, because it stitches them into its, the word is an orthomosaic. It's like a big giant map, or like a Google Earth image. It stitches them into the right place relevant to the sun and the time and things like that. So you don't just get a photo and shove it in like we did the other day. That's a very basic level and a very simple, clear photo. When we go higher, we actually need to process these images. And what we saw with the turtle tracks that Rachel's team showed us was the first image that they displayed was quite bright. It was a bit overexposed, white beach sand. You could not make out what was going on the beach. And then the image was cleaned up, and you could see what looked like excavator tracks, which is the turtle's flippers as it pulls itself along the sand. And then the third image, where it had been fully processed, there were tracks under the tracks from all the different visits of the turtles coming in on the different tides. And to actually see the sheer number of tracks that were there, that's when you realize you need an artificial intelligence system to help count the tracks, because it was just a crisscross of tracks. You could not see it unless the image was properly processed. And so that's another step that's missing in Rocky's explanation. And my criticism is that Rocky has not made the time to explain any of this to any of us. And so therefore, does he have the capacity? And this brings me to the point that we have the image processing capability, courtesy of Turtle Tracks. We have the AI processing capability, courtesy of Turtle Tracks, kangaroos, and rabbits. Rabbits also runs on infrared, which is at night. We can take Rocky's image as soon as his aeroplane flies, but we need to keep the pressure on him to make sure he makes that imagery available so that we can chuck it in our system and get a crack on the learning, the counting, the resolution, and understanding what's in that environment. With regard to a political solution, I would love to be able to tell you exactly my thinking on that, but I won't for the moment, and it's unfair, and I'll acknowledge that. But I am very concerned that the likes of, and I'll name the bastard, Peter Cochrane, would try to destroy this political solution. And I've got some meetings lined up on Monday at Parliament. I will be at New South Wales Parliament with Rachael. We're both going on Monday, and we're meeting with some of the parliamentarians whilst the inquiry's happening and in the breaks and what have you. It's my opinion, with some legal advice that I've got, that the culling, the shooting, maybe even the trapping that is currently occurring is unlawful. And I plan to put that information directly in the hands of the committee and other parliamentarians, because Parliament starts back for the year on Tuesday. And so whilst the committee work will continue, the work of the Parliament starts, and that's part of our alternative plan to try and halt the killing. So please try not to be hoodwinked by the idea that the horses have one last chance and that's Rocky. It's not true. The last chance always rests with the Parliament. And so we are pursuing every option that's available. And just the fact that you're all here today and the number of people watching later, the 5,000 people that tuned in and watched Rachael and I the other day. Now, we weren't going to do that the other day, but I started to see the conversation really breaking down publicly. And we thought, well, we'll just have to tell you what we're up to, because it gets to a point where it feels unfair, but we're having fun riding around on quad bikes and flying drones and playing with horses. We're having fun, but we're also working very hard. All I've done for 3 weeks is this. You all needed to know. And now the time is for us to start forcing this into the Parliament, the parliamentarians, the media. We should be listening to Rachael on Ray Hadley on Monday morning, talking about AI counting and turtle tracks. And you know the real thing that we should be seeing is Rocky Harvey sitting down at the table with the likes of Di and Renee and Rachael and saying, hey, that's pretty cool. How can we work together? It's either about the horses or it's about people's, I don't want to be rude here. What's the best way to say? It's about the people's personal agenda. What is your agenda, Rocky? What is your agenda, Peter Cochrane? And I'll put this on the record. My suspicion is building that national parks will ban horse riding. National parks will close most of the roads to vehicle traffic. National parks will ban bicycles. National parks will start to ban recreational fishing. National parks are starting to seemingly work with fisheries and protected fisheries to prevent restocking of certain creeks with trout. Rainbow trouts have been banned from areas. When you put all the dots together, coupled with the fantasy of the Special Activation Precinct, it's a pay-to-use fantasy wonderland You pay to ride a horse in the park. You pay to go bushwalking. You pay to go fishing. And at the moment, you pay Peter Cochran to go riding a horse, to go see the horses that he knows about. And I reject that. This is our national park. These are our horses. It needs to remain open to everybody, free, fair, and 24/7. So let's jump onto our parliamentarians and tell them to cancel the gate closures, cancel the shooting agenda, cancel the trapping, until we know some more facts about the national park, how many horses there are. And that's not going to be solved from an aeroplane flight and an AI machine, because we're still only counting small areas of an incredibly large park. I want to open up to anybody who's got questions, and anyone else in our team got any parting thoughts. I mean, the meeting doesn't have to end, but just the website, please. Oh, yes, the website. Please let us know if you have problems with it and how it resolves on your phones between Samsung and Apple and Google and Safari and whatever other browsers there are. We haven't tested it. We haven't had time. So again, we're outsourcing some of this to you, our friends. Please test it, try to break it. Just tell us how it breaks if it does. We don't mind, but that's also part of the learning experience. So, Nick, any thoughts there? Dan, any further thoughts on your end, the plugin?
No, it's all good. I'm just still working on it as we're talking. So it's just going to keep coming along and it'll be fine.
Yeah,
yeah,
same.
there's
Just
never anything.
send the feedback. We can work it. Just keep giving us feedback.
Yeah.
And
Any great
Sarah,
ideas, it's always welcome.
and Sarah put together the very comprehensive document, so please read it. Pop her a big thanks. She's put a lot of work into that, and I think it really lays out the status play, as it were. So, and again, I'll thank Guy and Renee. It might have felt a bit weird, but I just try to approach it quickly with a business approach as a project, where this is so far Rachael's contribution, Nicole's contribution, and I will probably spend about $5,000 of my cash, which I said I would put up, in funding the programmer. The programmer was in Hungary, the Lithuanian or whatever that other first one was, didn't start after accepting the job. So the Hungarian guy came through and's done a pretty good job. And that Dan's put a lot of work in this week to nurse that. So we've all put our time in to get to this point. So very grateful for all of that. And I think I've used up all my friend credits. I have to start again. And anyone got questions, please, I'll try to quick read through the comments while we have a chat.
There's a
I
couple
haven't
of
got it.
through around what are we doing with regards to capturing the whole park. Now, this is something that we have been up Rocky for and asked for clarification. Now, my take on this, and Andrew, Dan, and we can't involve our software devs because they aren't on the line, but this is moving very quickly. We are iterating through counting horses as opposed to rabbits over very different levels of elevation. We're currently looking at different options for imagery capture. Now, that be fixed wing, drone. We all know that we would have to get special license to fly drones in the park, but there's no reason why they can't give us that if we apply it in the right way. But there's fixed wing options as well. Airborne Logic aren't the only ones that can take photographs, imagery of a landscape. in a flight path that we tell them to. We're also looking at satellite imagery and whether we can get the right pixel density or resolution to actually count horses with purchased. So this is, Andrew and I are talking about this as well as everything that we're doing with the project, but we might have to purchase satellite imagery and get specific flyovers to get the right level of imagery that we need. And we're going to do that. We're not asking for money to do it. We are just going to make it happen. So in regards to your answer, to your questions, I should say, how long will it take to do the whole park? It's a little bit of suck it and see, which is not what some people want to hear. However, we've moved so far in 10 days with this program. If we get the right imagery, we can source the right imagery, then there's no reason that we can't do the park in a matter of weeks. Now, don't hold me to that because I don't have any information that's solid yet to provide us the imagery to be able to do the count. The counting machine's there. One, we have to train it. Two, we have to get the imagery to make sure that we understand what it can do. So sorry, I can't answer your questions directly in regards to how long will it take to count the whole park, but we're still working through this process. Does that make sense? Happy to take questions as well.
That makes sense to me. I'm just wondering, I know there's obviously legal avenues and it's all about politics and the parliamentarians. Andrew, which it is, it doesn't matter what the public does, even if we've all however many million voted to stop the Brumbies being killed, they just have to sit in their little ivory towers and all vote to the opposite. So the same, I'm just wondering about the drones, because I do know at one point there, it got to a certain stage where there was a company that had counted animals, I think in Africa or something like that. And sorry?
So impalas have been counted in Africa.
Yeah, but I think there was a company at one point there that was getting lined up to count in Kosciuszko, but I can't recall. Di, could you can you remember that?
We couldn't get permission.
That's what I thought. That's where I was coming back to, the ivory tower.
Ellen spoke to him and I spoke to him. That was about 3 years ago, and they were keen, but then they couldn't get licensed to go in there. And
they were also experts because they had done lots of counting.
Well,
with
they've done
drones,
animal counting.
Yes.
That's what they were. Yeah, exactly.
So, but they got knocked back because the politicians went, oh, okay, I won't say that, but they told us, yeah, off you go.
Yeah, well,
so how do you counter that then, Andrew?
It's national parks that have got to give you permission to fly over the park.
Unless we're above 170 metres.
Unless you're above 170 metres.
Yeah, something like that. So if we fly above 170 metres, then we don't need their permission. And drones now can do that. So the drone that we were using the other day goes to 500 metres. Not that we went to 500 metres, but it does.
That's right.
That's its rated capacity, rated ability. So it also goes to 10 kilometres away from you. So that's
right.
$1,000. That's a $1,000 medium level drone. Commercial drones.
Oh, really?
There's a range of commercial drones. I mean, there's a company in Melbourne making cardboard drones that they're sending to the Ukraine. Ukraine straps a bomb to them and flies them to Russia hundreds of kilometres away, where they crash into shit and blow up. I don't think that's very clever for an Australian company. Sending bombs to a trading partner. But anyway, the opportunities, as like I said, it's funnel theory. Look into the skinny end of the funnel at the world. And you're limited by your imagination. So we can do targeted area acquisition. So rather than trying to count the whole area, we could do boggy plain in an afternoon. We could do Corongo in the morning. We could strap the thermal camera and chuck around at night and see what we see. Much lower. We'd probably have to be under the 200 or under the 170 metre level to do the drone with thermal. We need the national parks to not only give permission for us to do this, but to be our project partner. Come and sit at the table, sit next to the drone operator, sit at the computer while the learning process happens. Watch how we do it. Now, here's a theory. They'll say, righto, thanks, that's great to know. We're going to go and build our own. Okay, off you go. They just starting from scratch. And governments are lazy. So are they really going to do that? Probably not. That's why Rachael's companies got the job to do rabbits and starfish. And think about the complexity of trying to analyze a starfish. Point number one, you're underwater. So you're acquiring imagery underwater at sea. And starfish clump together to what is the size of an adult starfish. Crown of thorns starfish. The 6 baby crown of thorns look like one adult. How do you count them? How do you recognize? How do you learn? So that problem's been addressed. Same thing for us. We have started addressing the problem. We want the national parks to actually sit down, welcome us in. We want to provide good science. And the Labor Party federally, and the Labor Party in the state got elected by promising to be guided by the science. I got sick of hearing that shit. We are guided by the science. Well, you don't vote in accordance with the science, but maybe you're guided by it. So this is an opportunity for some good science, citizen science. That term's used quite a bit. Repeatable, cross-checkable, shareable, and there are PhD students and first-year uni students studying machine learning and AI, desperate to get into this sector. It's a huge growth sector opportunity. They just need projects to sink their teeth into, and they'll turn up for free. And one of my friends is one of the world's top professors in AI machine learning, part of the Machine Learning Institute in South Australia. This is the kind of stuff that they dream of. So we just put out the word and say, hey, you want to be a part of this? I already know their answer. So we bring some serious science. Now, on top of that, the likes of Joanne Canning and Claire Galea, they take our outputs. We count what we see. We report on what we see, and they take our outputs and they wrap biological interpretations, mathematical expressions for whole of area populations. You can infer a wider population from a sample size. Here is a sample size. We accept it's a low density area on the basis of 20 square kilometres, low density area. We counted 12. We want to times that area by 10. We can logically times it by 10. And you can do that for medium density. You can do that for high density open plains. But you can't use an open plains expression to theorize animal populations in bush. So you would need to do a separate study of the populations in the bush. And then you need to do it, well, what's the population in the bush at night compared to during the day? And people tell me that the fiery range brumbies go out on the plains and eat at night, whereas the corungos go out and eat during the day. Who can explain that? I can't. But that's an interesting sciencey thing. I'm sure someone would love to study it. We provide the truth platform. We see what we see. We record the image. We lock it into a data hard drive or a data server, and other people can access it. If we are able to obtain a commercial benefit, which I'm not turning my mind away from that, I'm a realist, good luck to us. We put the work in, we put the hard work in. With respect to the horses, we are offering to make that platform information available because it's good science and the community need to know the truth. How many horses are there? And then it becomes a very simple question. If we can agree that there are less than 3,000 in KMP, no more shooting. If there's more than 3,000, well, we don't want shooting, but we can do trapping and rehoming humanely, orderly, because then the question is, where do you trap them? And then we're getting into the conversation quite deeply. So coming all the way back to the high level, we would like the national parks to open their gates and to allow us to put drones in, or a fixed wing, or both. And let's do this. Let's take a sample area. Let's do Boggy Plain. Let's do Kurungo. Let's do Peppercorn and see what's there. Because there's no hurry to go and kill any more horses, because it could actually be illegal. Does that sort of help answer the question a bit?
Thanks, Rachel.
And any other questions?
No, I was just confirming about the peer review.
Renee, you want to make a contribution as the project stakeholder?
Yeah, I guess, you know, from my point of view, minimizing as much risks as possible in this project is a key. And, you know, trying to get our head around how we are able to collect these images. I'm just thinking, could we maybe even consider going through university? Could they perhaps make it something of a study for them that we could collaborate with? I mean, with all of Rachel's, Andrew's, Dan's and all the other techie people, could there be some collaboration with the university to get over that hurdle of being able to get above these areas where the Brumbies are?
Yes. So yes, Renee, short answer. We have many people wanting to work with us.
Mm-hmm.
I work with UNSW, I work with QUT, I work with CIT in Canberra and New South Wales. So there are many areas that we can get these people to work with us. But aside from that, I've got a conglomerate of corporations who are willing to work with us. So KDR, who originally created the software for rabbits, BitQ, which is my sister company, has created the software to count turtles and starfish. They are all willing to work together to get this to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And it's not because they see it as a great idea. It's just because they are heart and soul into looking after our heritage. So
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of things that we are doing, many avenues that we are pursuing to try and get input. I won't say they're philanthropists, but they are doing a lot of this at no charge or pro bono to get us where we think we need to be. And we've got many, many plans. So there's 26 letters in the alphabet, and I have 26 plans, as does Andrew, to make sure this works. So there's not just a plan A, B, C. There's 26 other plans that we need to make sure that we are actively working on to make this happen. Does that give you any sort of comfort?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm feeling very comfortable with everything going forward, and the fact that you have all been able to create something so quickly for all of us to have a look at is very exciting.
And the point here, Renee, is that this was all offered to Rocky when we had the 78,000, and we could have then just used that for the plane to go all over the park, and then Rachael offered for all this to be done for nothing. And so we could have had this all done a couple of weeks ago. But he refused it. Well, he wouldn't talk to Rachael, and I asked him, could he just speak to her and see what she had to offer and use what we had to cover the whole park? And he point blank said no.
No. Well, who knows? I mean, maybe after a few of Rocky's group watch this and get to know where it's coming from and what it's for, maybe they will maybe there's hope that they could reconsider. And we would, I mean, personally, I wouldn't say no.
So there's a comment here from Dan that is particularly relevant, and it says, thinking about this, it's critical Rocky open sources makes publicly available is our images to count, as given the lack of knowledge, there's every chance of an incorrect and catastrophic count being put forward with no oversight. So let's say Rocky's program is a complete piece of shit and counts all the rocks and says there's 59,000 horses in the park. We wouldn't want that to go out. We need the peer review it. So we are also the first peer. We're just happy to peer review at the same time. But that's a very valid point, that relying on one count with somebody who hasn't explained their ability. We are trying to explain to you our ability and also tell you that this is crawling. This is walking before we run. This is crawling before we walk. And that we want to make this open and available and able to be interrogated the whole way through. My criticism of Rocky is that he hasn't shown us any capability. He hasn't provided any kind of examples of even what Airborne Logic have done, that they're going to fly the plane at 1,060 meters and count them from that height. Well, talking to some of the people who are in this area, they were quite shocked that that would be the start point, because you have to have a perfectly clear atmosphere to not be photographing dust or clouds. So there's a lot of risk in Rocky's approach. We're trying to also de-risk that approach. Again, that's crawling before we walk, before we run. So thank you, Dan, for that comment.
What we are doing is iterative. So we have a platform, we're feeding information into it. We're learning as we go, and the machine is learning as we go, and it will get better. So our hope is that we can get this up and running quickly. We've got a little bit more research to do in regards to image acquisition. If Rocky could provide us with the imagery that he does take, and I'm sure he will, with the flight path that he's intending to do for the $78,000 that everybody has put in for, and the little bit more that he's asking, if he provides us those images, as he has said he would, then we can feed it into our machine. And as I said the other day, competition is good, because if we can get to an accurate count, because we have the right imagery with the right technology, then that's better for what we are trying to protect, yeah? And that's our horses. That's the Brumbies. That's what we're all here for.
Yeah.
So I hope Rocky watches this video too, because that would be really handy for him to maybe change his way of thinking.
Well, I welcome it. I offered my service.
Absolutely.
No...
I'd like to see it too. I think we all would like to see it. Because, you know, yeah, it just helps everybody.
So there's a couple of points. I mean, some of the criticisms directed at me are insane. Apparently, I'm the secret agent for the National Parks. I'm the secret agent for the Invasive Species Council. I've done everything in my power to destroy the count. It's going to be very hard for Rocky. It's now, as I said, it's now police and lawyers' mess. But it takes an apology, a simple apology, to just put the horse before your ego and say, okay, let's go back and sit down at the table. That offer is out there. I had that communicated to him personally yesterday through a mutual friend. It's going to be a tough one, but if he does watch this, pretty sure he will. He's going to try and get some hot tips on how to build an ML machine. The offer is there, Rocky. I'll say it bluntly, stop being a dick. Sit down at the table with some of the other people, because you're rejecting the help from Renee, Joe Canning, Rachael, Thaler, Nicole, who's knocked up a website to help people understand how this works. You're rejecting that help, which is insane. So it's going to be hard, but it's not impossible. I'm a bit of an optimist. The criticisms from Jeanette Marie and Marilyn Nusk and what have you are, they're insane. And I wonder to what end. So here it is, ladies. This is the thing that counts things. Anything. It's available. Feel free to use it. Have a test. Join us. Send us a drone image. We'll chuck it in and see what happens. We're actually pretty easy people to get on with. But there are limits. So cut the bullshit. Put the horse before your ego. Let's get through the next day of the inquiry. There might be a third day, I think, because there's still plenty of witnesses available. There might be a third day coming up on the inquiry.
Yeah, Emma said yesterday there will be.
Right. And I cornered our politician today and said, mate, it's not on. Stop it. He would buy the petrol for the helicopters and he would put the bullets in the guns if he could. He is that driven by hatred of the horse. It's weird. But he had to admit there is a big risk that if there's less than 3,000, then it's basically illegal. Now, you can use the plugin. There is a limit to the number of images that are in there. I'm hoping you can share this around to your friends, and I'm sure there's going to be some criticism online that it doesn't live up to anyone's expectation. The thing is, there are no expectations because there is no public knowledge on this. We had to learn this shit too. So we've done what we believe is our best effort in the time with the budget that we had to get us to this point. And we hope that you see that that's our best effort. We can only keep building, and we can only make it better, and we can only make it bigger. It's all going to occur in steps. So if anyone has any other questions, I'm happy to kind of call time on it at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I guess I would just like to chip in my thoughts about this, and I know the focus is on KNP, but you know, we shouldn't forget we've got brumbies in every state and every territory. You know, and it doesn't stop at the border of New South Wales. You know, I think Di and I, we've done this Brumbies Without Borders type of approach to nearly everything that we've done, and it doesn't stop at New South Wales for the Brumbies.
No, well, look at Karen Summers the other day trying to go and rescue a foal out of Alice Springs because they're suffering up there from a weather perspective. The horses get chased around by pack dogs in communities, and this lady was trying to rescue a foal and wanted somebody to come and take it. Now that happened because the foal died, unfortunately, but it just goes to show what's going on in other states and territories.
Yeah,
that is not just KNP. Our Brumby counting AI platform or animal counting platform, because it's an animal counting platform. We can use it anywhere. We can count donkeys. Now, the difference between donkeys and a Brumby up in the Northern Territory is going to be an interesting way that we need to teach the machine, but there's no reason why we can't.
Yeah.
We can count penguins in Antarctica. Happy to go down there if anybody wants us to.
No, you can. I don't like the cold.
I'm in Nivetabel. We love the cold. But yes, Renee is spot on, which is why I asked her to be a project stakeholder on behalf of horses in wider areas, because this problem is Victoria, Queensland, Northern Territory. It's everywhere. And it's not limited to horses. It's why we said our mission was to count anything. We could count rocks if you want.
Yeah, and look, you know, to me, it's really important that whatever we do, it's always from a welfare perspective that we are doing this as well. It's not just statistical hard data; it's also from a welfare perspective. And I think if you appeal to the public on that level as well, you're not going to get a lot of resistance, because you know you are really doing some compassionate conservation here. With this hand in hand, I think we've got to try and marry a little bit of the heart and the head to get a really broad appeal out there for it.
There's a good question. Fiona Johnson just said, but can Sharp stop until after the results of the inquiry? She should, if she was going to do the right thing. But there's another element to that, Fiona, is that Shooters Farmers Fishers Party, Mark Beneviak, who I'm a friend of, referred the National Parks and Wildlife Service and the RSPCA to the New South Wales Police to be investigated for breaching law and animal cruelty. So not only is it potentially unlawful to carry out any population control, killing or what have you of the Brumbies as per the Heritage Horse Management Plan, but also there's an active police investigation into animal cruelty allegations as a consequence of the shooting on November 6th of the 270 horses. Now we find out in those documents that were published during the week is that they've apparently shot, was it 780 horses with aerial methods? So where are the 780 horses that have been shot with aerial methods? The aerial controlled shooting was only meant to have occurred after the trial on November 6 and 7. That trial was inquired into in day one of the hearing, resulting in a police referral for an allegation of animal cruelty. How the hell did they go and shoot 600 more from helicopters? And where are the bodies? Because no one's come up with any photos saying, hey, shit, guys, there's a shitload of dead horses here. There's something not right in that equation. And I think there's something not right in the minister's mind, because that's a hell of a risk to take on. She is risking a criminal charge, is she? Her department head risking a criminal charge, public shaming. So there's a lot of reasons not to go ahead with killing, not just the arguments over the numbers, but there's an active police investigation. Anybody else got some questions? Haven't fallen asleep, have you, Rhonda? Rona? Is everybody happy to wrap it up?
Yep.
Yep.
Right. Someone ring Rona and let her know that the meeting's ended.
Oh, I'll sleep again.
Thank you all. Someone got changed before as well.
I think that was Rona.
I think that was Rona.
Oh, God.
Anyway, I think this recording goes up as speaker view, not audience view. So I'll get this downloaded later tonight. We'll upload it on the tube and you can bang it around. Look, I am very grateful for everybody's support, their kind words, their encouragement, and even to the people that offered me some money. A couple of people said, look, I've only got $100, but it's yours. thank you. We have just demonstrated that we are stronger together. And I'm glad that Jane Doe joined us. That means that they read my Facebook post and they excused my typos. I was typing in the sun. Thank you again to Nicole for the website work. Thank you to Dan for the development of the machine learning thing. Thank you to Rachael for the use of her farm. It's now going to become internet famous. And
so
thank
is
you
my
all for,
which I'm sitting in.
and your kitchen. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon and
Wonderful.
understanding or starting to understand. You're on your way to becoming AI experts, and that's not the one where you put the big glove on your arm.
Thank you, everyone. This is really good.
Yeah,
Promising.
it's been fabulous. Thank you very much to
Thank you.
Look forward to
And
the next part. Bye.
thank you
Thanks,
all.
Andrew, Rachel,
Bye.
Nick,
Bye.
Di,
Thanks all.
Renee.
Zoom. Great
Bye.
information. Bye bye.